Hi, and welcome to the Restorative Wellness Clinicians Corner, video series exclusively for functional health professionals, where we interview the top experts in the latest research, products, tools, and best practices for getting your clients exceptional results. Welcome, everybody. Great to see you all here for the RWS Clinicians Corner. So today I am super excited for our guest. We have Barton Scott, who is a biochemist, founder, nutritionist, and researcher. And for the last 7 years, Barton has been the founder and process developer behind Upgraded Formulas, which is an innovative supplement company that I am super excited to introduce you all to. So Barton is passionate about helping people address the daily stress of life, sleep struggles, hormone issues, fatigue, and the nutrient absorption issue that we and our clients all face. So welcome to Restorative Wellness Clinicians Corner, Barton.
Oh, it's great to be here. Thank you. Thank you, Margaret.
So I want to share my story of meeting you and my first experience of working with your products, because I meet a lot of people. I mean, a lot of people with supplements, cool supplements, and sometimes the reality doesn't match up to the hype. And so I will confess, we're part of a practitioners group together. And when we met and you shared about your products, when we first met, it was like a very, very brief conversation. And you were like, oh, here, really bioavailable form of magnesium. And I was like, oh, okay, magnesium, great. And I will admit, I was like, okay, sounds great. But I was honestly prepared to be underwhelmed. And then you hooked me up with some samples, and I was already taking magnesium, and I've been taking magnesium for a long time. I'm a high stress person. I'm sort of the classic personality type of someone who like runs hot and definitely needs support and kind of chilling out. And I wear my Oura ring, and I track my sleep, and I track all the biomarkers, and all the biomarkers were saying like I was doing great. So, and I, for those of you who use an Oura ring, like my deep sleep, I was already feeling really proud of myself because I would consistently get around 2 hours, maybe a little more than 2 hours a night. And I was like, I don't know how much further we can go here, but sure, I'll try it. So I tried I tried several things, but the key one, and I started specifically with just this one because I wanted to see the experience of that alone. And so I just switched from what I was taking to the upgraded formulas, upgraded magnesium. And within a few nights, my deep sleep started reaching 3 hours a night. And I was just like, wait, what? And I am also as I said, I'm a pretty high strung person. And I was noticing that I was actually, I was in this very high intensity time of my life. And I was noticing that I was actually able to chill. Like I was, it was actually remarkable. And so I was like, okay, I am definitely impressed. I want to learn more. So that's been my experience so far. And I've tried other products as well. And I want, Barton, what I'd actually love to start with is your story, because I realize it's actually not listed in your bio here. But as I understand it, you're an engineer originally, right? A chemical engineer.
Right.
So
right.
I want to hear the full story of how does a chemical engineer transform into a supplement formulator and come up with this like incredible new technology.
Oh, I'd love to share that. So it really started with my mom. We were really close as a family, and I was born to, two awesome parents in their 40s. And she started to get sick, and I didn't have an answer that worked, it seemed like. And that became more and more apparent. And it started with medication for her, and then that led to surgery, and that led to more medication. And I just thought about ways to sort of prove to her that there were things that she could address. So I started doing a bunch of functional medicine tests on myself, on her, on my girlfriend at the time, and her dad. And what I found was that some of the tests weren't very actionable. In other words, there weren't like big gaps that could be improved, or the things, once we improved them, they, it wasn't super noticeable, or the recommendations weren't super noticeable. I've since found many other tests that are very, just that I really love. But I think fate sort of guided me at that point to find not only hair testing in general, which was the test that showed deficiencies for all of us, but just that I don't know. It's just like this was the thing at that time that I needed to see, apparently. And also, the other part was just having an incredible consultation with someone that just knew a ton about it, like layers on layers on layers of things. And I was captivated, and I already had a minor in chemistry at that point. So I mean, I dove in pretty quickly and just absorbed all these different things that like so many things started to make sense. And I felt a wave of relief and understanding. I felt sort of taken care of, and like this was the beginning of something. But then pretty quickly thereafter, I found that I was not, and neither was she, all four of us were not absorbing, and clearly we weren't absorbing things because our levels weren't changing from one test to another. Right. So we were taking different mineral supplements, and I had us on really good brands, and then we changed the brands, changed the dose, and none of the symptoms were moving. All the things that needed to happen weren't happening, but I could see that the test was good, and just understood more and more and more. So in the last 12 years, I've read and spoken to any expert on this, and just read everything available, and I'm writing a book this year, and about this and about the changes that I made and had to figure out along the way. So my background, luckily enough, is all about how to take an industrial process and improve it through a lens, specifically in where I went to school around nanotechnology, which was a perfect fit for this, because that's exactly the type of improvement we needed to make to the process. So the process could essentially digest the minerals for us, so it can make the particle size small enough to get into your bloodstream, and this is key, without digestion. And when that happens, magic really happens, and that's how you go from 3 hours or 2 hours to 3 hours in deep sleep, and life just sort of just the doors open. You're like, where things get really, really good. We're a lot more open and available to the miracles of life, the magic of life, when we are fully present. And that really only happens when we sleep well, when we manage our blood sugar well, when we have the nutrients needed to make the basis for all of our hormones, like thyroid and adrenal. And that's the case with minerals in all of those cases. And it's just the most foundational area that I could focus on that moved the needle the most. And I'm really proud of what we have now as a company, and the kind of results we're able to give people.
Okay, so you've answered a big question, because I was thinking, like, how did you even think of moving into like nanotechnology? That just seemed so it's not that it's random. It's just so different from we're so obsessive with all the different forms of magnesium, right? Like the glycate, lactate, citrate, like blah, blah, blah. But this just takes that out of the equation altogether, as I understand it, right? Like, so.
Right. That's a great thing. Yeah. This is also really, really key for everyone listening. I know everyone on this call is really educated, really smart, really savvy, knows a ton of things, and has helped people with the tools that you've helped them with. Whenever you eat magnesium from food, right? You eat foods that contain magnesium, for example, and this is true for other minerals. We have about 20 products. We're just talking about one in particular right now, but we have, a solution to everything on the hair test, which is what I felt like we needed. So I created the process, and I put every mineral through it. And really, in this case, I chose to bind the end product with chloride. So it's certainly not magnesium chloride as you'd think of it normally. And it's unique to us. So there's a couple steps in the process that allow for particle size to be really small, and then for the end product to be really, really stable. And that makes a tremendous difference. And you no longer need to remember about these different forms, because just like food, when you eat something, whether it's a salad or a steak or anything else that has some level of, whether it's, any mineral, but including magnesium as an example, because when we've been taught to, take this one crosses the blood-brain barrier and that one does and this one doesn't. That's true for the old formula, the old process, right? The old industrial process that produced a certain end product where you just shoveled that in your body, and it just like didn't really work with the body. What I realized was necessary was that you have to put something in your body that didn't rely on the fact, or that it didn't rely on the gut to absorb. So understanding that most of us would unfortunately live and die with some level of gut dysfunction, if not a lot, because there's just so many people we wouldn't reach. There was also so many people that we needed to give quick wins to.
Yeah.
You can give a quick win to, then you have someone that then you can take them through all your other things, like a note test, and just go down this whole chain of other great tests. But you have to give them some sort of win. And for example, sleeping better is a great one. So.
I want to circle back to the absorption issue in just a moment, but first I want to ask this question, because you've hinted to the answer already, which is that it was this connection with the practitioner using an HTMA and a hair tissue mineral analysis test that really was the first time like you felt like you were getting somewhere. So that's a piece of the puzzle when it comes to why minerals. But what else? Because I mean, there's vitamins, there's proteins, there's different. I mean, there's so many different ways that we can go, like so many different paths you could have chosen, but you chose this one very specific path. So can you tell us a little bit more about why minerals so specifically?
Yeah, why minerals so specifically? Well, it's kind of hard to say, like, that beginner's mind to go all the way back to then, but part of it was, so let me say it this way. We all had that, at some point we're sitting in class and they introduced the periodic table, right? And we went, wow, that seems like a lot of things, right? Yeah. A lot of different things to memorize and know and understand. The problem is we often aren't testing for all those elements, but in a hair test we can, and we can look at, most importantly, the ratios of those things. And when I realized that I was looking for a sort of puzzle piece, a lock and key thing, sort of concept which we talk about first principles. We talk about thinking from sort of the ground up. What's the foundation? What's the root cause? Well, I realized that we're all made of a collection of those elements. And then I realized, okay, we need a test for those elements, and we need to know what to do, and we need products that work. So it seemed like we had two of the three. And and then consultations to understand which ones you need and how to navigate the testing. So yeah, that's really it. And then heavy metals along with that. So we test for that as well. And when you understand that whole picture, it's just a great place to begin or end, if you're doing tremendous amount of other things, like Jeff with Glad and Longevity is my friend here in Dallas who I'm staying with and working with these couple days. I mean, they're using our testing and our products, and some of the services that it's just tremendous. The other, like, how many other options you have. And also, if let's say you're doing stem cells or exosomes or V cells or any of these other things, and you don't have, either you have a lot of heavy metals, maybe it's through mercury amalgams, maybe it's just deposits through a lifestyle in a big city. Maybe it was deposited to you from your mom. All of those things are very possible. Whatever it is, you have to create an environment so that in that case, the stem cells thrive. And no matter what you're doing, whether you're trying to fix gut dysbiosis or anything else, it's all linked to me. So the two foundational areas seem to be, in my mind, mineral deficiency and gut health, and they both also play together because, sorry, I know this is a run-on sentence, but or just one long monologue, but imagine you have your gut, right? And you're stressed, and I wish I had a whiteboard, I'd just diagram this, but you're stressed. So, or the average person is stressed, and they reached for, we're all human, they reach for, let's say, something sugary to sort of calm their anxiety, or they can't really think, so they just start grasping. They didn't sleep well, so you're 60% more likely to snack, roughly, and indulge in foods that aren't good for you, behaviors that aren't good for you when you don't sleep well. So they're already magnesium deficient, and maybe deficient in other things as well. For example, minerals that balance blood glucose, and just allow you to have a healthy relationship between insulin and blood glucose. And then because of that craving and that sort of gnawing, they reach for things that then create an internal state that feed the bad bacteria, that feed so it's just this one loop that I see that, it's obviously, doing more than one protocol and approach is great. And yet, this is a really important one to understand. So
yeah, absolutely. We're big believers in starting off with those kind of foundational principles, and kind of circling back to the whole digestion and absorption thing. There's nobody in this crowd that you're going to need to convince that absorption and digestion is like the most important piece. That's why
right.
one of the things we teach is that we always start with digestion, and one of them, there's many different reasons for this, but one of them is exactly what you're talking about, is that nutrient absorption. But even that doesn't mean that the nutrients that you're taking in supplement form are actually, particularly, while you're doing that healing work, it can be really helpful, as you say, to get some quick wins. And, with a level, I know I'm a little stuck on the magnesium, partly because I had such a profound experience with it, but also partly like looking at, the state of the world right now. I really think it's fair to say that, most people's stress levels are at an all-time high, and there's not really any indication that they're going down. Right. So we really need to be able to, and we know that magnesium is the first mineral that's depleted in times of stress. So it's just, to me, it's one of those, to me, it's now become like, everybody needs to be on this as just kind of part of their overall maintenance. And for exactly as you say, if you're not sleeping, if you're not able to bring that body down, then it affects really everything else. Now,
cramps as well. Just anxiety, headaches, constipation, eye twitches, bloating, all these signs are, signs of magnesium deficiency. Skin issues, hair loss, is connected to that in part. So much.
So you kind of hinted at this a little bit earlier, but with this form of magnesium, so for example, while it can help to minimize constipation, it's not one of those things where, let's change the question. Let's talk about dosing, because dosing does change when you're working with a technology that is so hyper absorbable. So can you talk to us about, because we've got an audience here of clinicians, how should they think differently when working with your products versus other products, both in terms of dosing and in terms of, with magnesium, we're sometimes thinking of different forms if we want to stimulate bowels versus another form for more stress, we're always sort of making those distinctions because of these slight differences in what those different forms do. How does that translate with what your technology provides?
Sure. So you mentioned bowels. I can talk about that one first because it's fun. So I think we're all pretty aware that, for example, magnesium oxide doesn't work because it works for example, clearing the bowels because it doesn't absorb. It absorbs at 4%. So it's effective for that because it doesn't work for example, for absorbing. So it creates this sort of foamy action, stimulatory effect in the bowels and motility as a result. As far as dosing, you do need less of every one of our products, most likely, than what you would normally prescribe. And finding out that is a bit of a personal experience, which is totally okay. I've gotten by with as few as 2 mLs of our liquid magnesium, or 2 capsules per night. And I find, because of my activity, I'm also 195, 6 feet. I'm active. I work a lot. I'm just always on the go. I'm active, physically, mentally, all these things. And I think most of us are in this group, right? Or we desire to be more and more, right? To get more out of life is really the goal and the pursuit of all of this for me. It's first and foremost, I want to increase intelligence and energy as much as possible, because as a overarching sort of view of this, kind of why minerals and everything, was I realized this was the area that allowed me to increase energy, and energy was directly correlated to the goals that I could pursue and achieve, increase the chance of achieving them in life. For example, take someone like, Tony Robbins, and cut his energy by 60%. Suddenly he can't do what he's built a life helping people to do, or any other example you think of. So that to me was really correlated. With our products, because you absorb them so well, virtually completely, we can't say completely, but you don't, you could not have a digestive system at all. And if you're taking our liquid products, or if you're taking the capsule and opening it over a glass of water, and you could not have a digestive system and it would still absorb. So and that because the cramp that you have in your leg, or PMS cramps, they stop in a matter of a minute or two. And so you might wake up in the middle of the night and then be frustrated by that, but then you have this as a sort of ripcord that you can pull and then go back to bed. And cramps, when they're waking you up in the middle of the night, it's a pretty scary thing. I've been there after heavy leg workouts and things. You'll get temporary deficiencies, basically, because these are all things that you have to take in on a daily basis. So
I've as a distance runner, I know those very, very well. They are brutal and painful and scary and all the things. So it is wonderful. Now, I love you talked about the fact that you've got the liquid form and the powder form. Can you explain? The liquid form is so foul. There's no way to sugarcoat this, right? It is not a fun tasting thing. So is there benefit? I was like, hey, why do they have this when you had the capsule form? But do you recommend, because I've noticed the capsules, when they sometimes I've had them kind of leak a little bit, and I'm like, oh, there's that taste. So do you recommend, is it even better absorption if you take the liquid form and or open the capsule and put that in water? Is that the kind of mainlining it situation, or is it?
Right. It's just faster. It's faster.
Okay.
And so capsules are totally fine. Our best-selling product is the capsules. I created that. We can put all of our products, the dehydrated version, in capsules, but I also wanted to reduce people's pill burden too.
Right.
And then the liquid is there's an easy hack to this, though. Everyone,
tell us the hack.
It's so simple. So if you have just a couple ounces of water, even less than this, you put the liquid in there and you shoot it like a shot, and then you have one sip of water after, and you just do that thing with your mouth that causes you not to taste it. You just shoot it and kind of and then
drink the water after.
That makes sense. I don't know if that makes sense to people, or you just take some of our electrolyte or another electrolyte that you like and you flavor it. And that's usually what I do. And I just sip it and I absolutely don't taste it at all. So to me, it's just, just getting creative with that, because so I typically flavor it with it's called Upgraded Charge, our electrolyte, which
is yummy.
I think is awesome. It tastes really good. It tastes a lot like a margarita. It's salty.
Yeah,
It's
it does.
lime.
It's yummy. That's right.
Yeah. I like kind of always wanted in my water, to be honest. So it's a blend. It does also, in my opinion, you really don't want calcium in your electrolytes. And I see calcium in some electrolytes. You ideally don't want stevia either. Some people also just don't like the taste of stevia.
Right.
But there's some research to show that stevia is not great for us, and possibly very bad. So like C word bad, you know? So,
Oh, wow.
but who knows? Anyway, yeah, so the flavor, just in case anyone cares about that or knows about it, or wants to ask it comes from lime peel. So we take lime peel, dehydrate it, mix it, extract it. And yeah, so that's where it comes from.
Excellent. Excellent. So we've talked a lot about magnesium, but I want to give some other minerals their time in the sun.
Sure.
What I would love to ask you, because you guys do so much of this with testing, is what do you think both clinicians and consumers, I want to focus mostly on clinicians because that's who our audience is here today. Like, which are some of the minerals that people just don't think of, like the ones that you're like, oh
Sure.
man, this one moves the needle in this way and most people miss it, or like which ones are the unsung heroes?
Sure. Yeah. Manganese for raising core body temperature, and if you're sore after workouts for an abnormally long time, that's really the 5 minerals that I put in upgraded memory. People seem to really like. It doesn't have much of a taste either. That product's great because all of those minerals are synergistic, and so boron is in that group as well. Boron's great for men and women. It along with phosphorus are synonymous with intelligence. It's also great for reducing sex binding globulin if you have male patients or female patients that need to raise testosterone for any reason, because even as women, you have many more times testosterone than you have estrogen in your body, and that gets overlooked. So it's really important for healthy decisions, wanting to get to the gym, drive, motivation, sex drive, all of these things. So yeah.
So what else? You said your upgraded memory. So we've got manganese, you've got boron, phosphorus. What are the other two?
We have iodine in there.
Okay.
Yeah. We have iodine and molybdenum.
Okay.
Yeah. Molybdenum helps with protein utilization.
Okay.
So, a lot of people will be trying to, increase their metabolism, having more protein, and yet have, low stomach acid, low MolyB levels, and then they're kind of like that spinning wheel on your Mac type thing. They're like stuck. So that helps. And we see these be low for a lot of people. The other thing is iodine. Iodine is one of my favorites. And I started to just jump in with that one.
No, that's great. That's what I wanted you to do.
Yeah. So all of those are pretty much 90. Yeah, all of those are really around 90%. I guess with the exclusion of phosphorus, but that one's pretty high too. In other words, 90% of people or more are deficient in those.
Oh, wow.
Iodine, there's a study of 6,000 people, 96% were found to be deficient in iodine, some of which self-reported that they were taking iodine supplements, and which kind of also shows you the likelihood of absorption. And also, just to pause and just generally say, so really all the supplements I've ever tested in a lab have been 25 to 30% or less absorbed. Wow. Into solutions that, so and foods around that as well. You won't get much more than about 30% of the nutrients from your food, right? And ultimately, I gave a talk a while back around macros and micros, and just remembering, like, why do we eat, and what was the benefit of it? It's really just what our food breaks down to. So if you're on a certain diet or recommending a certain diet, it's thanks to all the micronutrients ultimately that I mean, other compounds too, polyphenols are important, all these things, but so thinking of that, and also realizing, well, the soil's incredibly depleted and it's getting worse year by year, and we need to be helping people have healthy children, so that when you kind of zoom out, we have more and more intelligent people, and we're giving birth to innovators instead of people that are just smart enough to get by type thing. The thing with iodine as it relates to this is it's so important for brain development that an iodine deficiency can lead to 15 to 20 point lower IQs in children, just in that one nutrient if mom doesn't have it. So,
right.
Yeah, big deal.
Alarming. That's alarming. So we've talked about your, the magnesium product. You talked about this combination product, and I love your blends. I would actually love you to talk a little bit more about some of the other blends, and when should clinicians be thinking about these with their clients?
Sure. Yeah. Peak thyroid is one of our really popular ones, as well as upgraded metabolism. Those, both have a collection of minerals that help with those different things. Peak thyroid, I designed for virtually anyone to be able to take. If they're testing high or low, you're most likely still in need of these nutrients. And then if you're very low or hypothyroid, then you likely need quite a bit more iodine, unless you have antibodies. Then, in my opinion, from my perspective, the thyroid still, again, if we just wipe our minds of anything we've ever heard for a second, and look at this with a blank sheet of paper and go, all right, so the thyroid, true or false, needs to be able to produce thyroid hormone. Yes. You need to be able, and when it produces hormone, it produces T3 and T4, which are iodine molecules, right? Is it then important to consume iodine or iodide? In my opinion, that is sort of like, that's sort of like a law of gravity. Iodine is also a pretty friendly molecule in the body, unlike other certain nutrients that are more aggressive. Iodine's smooth. It's antibacterial. It's antiviral. It's antifungal. It's self-sacrificial, which is why we're so low in it. Right, in addition to, when you look at, if you do a survey of the foods that you're eating and have eaten in the last week, how many contain iodine?
Right.
Very few. And then that's how many are supposed to contain iodine, right? What about the ones that are, what about the deficiency? What about the soil? Since 1940 until now, the last 80 years roughly, conservative stats show that we've lost 40% of the nutrients in our topsoil. And that's what I mean when I say we need to be giving birth to innovators, supporting mothers in that. And then guys, from a fertility standpoint, just quickly, I think it gets overlooked. Sperm quality can be boosted through magnesium and zinc pretty readily. And you don't want to just only supplement magnesium or zinc, right, without testing your counterbalances to that, which are sodium, potassium, copper in the case of zinc. So yeah, that's why I know a lot of people have the phrase, and I'm okay with other people using the phrase, but we actually own the phrase test, don't guess. And I think that we should all use that as a concept for practitioners, because
100%.
If we really want to help people, we need to give them a map of what to do and where they are currently and where they're going.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, you won't need to talk anyone here into testing.
Yeah.
That's what we do.
Yes.
I just want to go back to the iodine piece for a minute, because I know that there's, you have the anti-iodine camp, and then you have the pro-iodine folks. You have, Belinda just shared, there's a book out, The Thyroid Reset Diet, removes all iodine foods. And then you have, Dr. Brownstein's work, and he's having you iodine load. Right. So I guess my question to you about iodine, I'm not the expert in iodine, so,
Sure.
correct me here, but,
Sure.
when I think about iodine, I'm thinking about, specifically when we're thinking about thyroid. I mean, it is such an incredibly important nutrient, exactly as you said. It is so deficient, or so many people are deficient in it, for all of the reasons that you just said. And when there is autoimmunity, in particular with like Hashimoto situations, we can see it like sort of dramatically drive up those TPO enzyme antibodies, which, there's logic to that, because iodine will feed that enzymatic process. And so that can upregulate those antibodies. But I just wanted to say,
Yeah, I just wonder if we've only done part of the research on that. And I just wonder intuitively if our body might be happier, and part of the reason we developed that, part of the reason, maybe not all, because there could be emotional distress, there can be heavy metals, but that we're calling iodine the bully and blaming that. But maybe, just maybe, because there wasn't enough there. Because here's the interesting thing: how much has anyone done research where they've measured and found, and I would guess not, high levels? I doubt that you'll see this, high levels of iodine and also antibodies that are high, right? I don't think that's happening. So what does that tell you? That it might be chicken and the egg, and we might have it wrong. I don't know.
I think Dr. Brownstein would agree with you. I think that's sort of his premise. Yeah.
I don't remember that specifically. I read that book a long time ago, and I've read a lot of other studies and things. And what I'm talking about, I think, hasn't ever been studied, but I'd love to see that correlation. And I bet we would see that it doesn't correlate, but that's just something to think about. Yeah.
Well, you all do lots of HTMA testing. It'd be interesting to see if you ever see those elevated levels of iodine, kind of keep track of that. And does that actually ever correlate with somebody with elevated antibodies? We have Leah sharing, I'm a Hashi's person. I supplement with iodine and my antibodies are lower than ever. So
there we go. We could absolutely match people. And I think this could change the health for a lot of people if we mash together, especially all of you awesome practitioners that are doing a lot of other tests. Maybe you're running a full thyroid panel, including RT3 and a lot of TPO and all your antibodies, right? So matching that with the hair test, this would be super interesting to see. I would love to see this. I imagine that we'll see very low levels of iodine in the people that have antibodies. I'm virtually certain of that. I really am.
That's interesting.
So
I haven't done an HTMA test in a long time. I did test myself. I have done one a long time ago. I don't remember the iodine specifically. I've done iodine testing specifically with the urine. I did the loading test. And it did not come out low, but it didn't come out off the charts high. It just came out sort of in the moderate range. So and I do have antibodies, or I did at the time.
Yeah. If I can say something to that. So with iodine, let's see, what did you say? You said you talked about the excretion challenge. In my opinion, there's not an accurate way to test for iodine. We've pulled it off of our hair test.
Oh, interesting.
You can cross correlate it though with about 8 other things, and you'll get whether or not it's almost certainly low, because we understand, although it's not accurate to test for that individual element, because it's in an ultra small amount in the body. Again, we're so deficient in it, and it's the way it just doesn't lend itself to testing accurately in any form, and that I'm aware of: blood, urine, hair. But what you can do is understanding this sort of matrix, which we have in our hair testing course. You're able to, and I think other people teach this too, but you're able to see sort of like check yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, and you get a bunch of yeses or a bunch of no's, and that ultimately means, oh yes, you are low in iodine, for example, based on, well, your calcium to magnesium ratio is this, your calcium's really high, just a number of different things. So that's another thing to think about. So you can do that. And also iodine helps break down calcium shells too in the body.
Right.
So.
Can you share a little bit more about some you mentioned earlier, and then I have two other questions, and I want to open it up to questions for the group here. But you mentioned earlier, some of these key nutrients that you're finding like over 90% of people are deficient in. Are there any other like major trends like that you're seeing in terms of either deficiencies or, excess? I know oftentimes we'll always, I don't know that you can test one without the other. Or at least I've never seen a test one without the other, because you're also looking at the heavy metals, right? And the toxicities. So are you seeing trends in terms of the relationships with that, or, just what some of the things that you're seeing, since you guys do so many of these?
Sure. So yeah, we're seeing about 90% of people being low in magnesium, or low in magnesium and B6. So when you do a hair test, if someone shows elevated magnesium, you can ask them a couple of questions, but you can almost guess, even without asking questions, that they don't have a cofactor. So it's showing high because their body is absorbing it, but they're not able to utilize it fully, because they're so chronically low in B6. And when we look at the whole methylation pathway, B6 plays a huge role in the body, and most of us are low in it. I've taken as much as 200 milligrams for quite a while to get that right. And I finally was able to get it right and correct it. And I started off at like 10 milligrams, a long time. And I was like, wow, no result. And I went to 100 and stayed at 100 for a while. And I started muscle testing to like go, all right, what are other, like, I know I need this. Do I need a lot more? Yes. And you sort of like use your body as a pendulum, which is a really interesting thing that I've kind of trusted, and has worked out well to my surprise. Frankly, I'm most surprised of anyone. And then, so potassium, 99% of us are deficient in it, because you need almost 5 grams of potassium a day. How do you get that? Sodium, probably 60% of people are low in sodium if they're eating a good diet, a clean diet. So salting your food as much as you want. The body has a limiting factor for salt, like quality salt. You're not going to overeat it, almost surely. The body, I mean, I'll just say that clean. For a couple of days, try to eat too much salt. Your body will just go, whoa,
Interesting.
And you can salt your water if you need to. Again, testing, not guessing, and looking at ratios, not just individual elements. So sodium to potassium is a really important one for emotional health too. If you're below about a 1.4, you can all but guarantee that the person is going to exhibit some emotional disorder. Possibly even something you might call bipolar. So,
oh wow,
yeah, shocking, but very, very true. I've seen it firsthand many times. So
interesting. That's a perfect segue for my last question, and then I want to open it up to those who are here. So, I've heard you described in another podcast that you did, that you are in one of your trainings. I can't remember where, but I've heard you speak to the fact that minerals really express through one's habits and one's personality, or our mineral sort of deficiencies or sufficiencies. Can you say a little bit more about that?
Yeah, sure. So that's a great example. The one we just talked about, sodium and potassium. That's a big one. Another is, let's say someone has very high iron. High iron levels is linked to anger, actually. So is lead. Lead is angry. Mercury is madness. Mad Hatters, back in the day.
Yeah.
Madness. Not necessarily anger, but just craze, just absolute craze. That may seem like maybe creative at times, but also just like super ungrounded. And also in that area of creativity, if you have although copper can be really helpful and needed in the body, and you may want to supplement it, possibly. Too much copper can cause someone to be overly creative and has a really feminine quality in that way, like overtly though. And what that looks like would be, whether male or female, starting projects, mini projects, not finishing. So like a very high, as you would say in a Colby personality test, high quick start, very low follow through as just a sort of pattern often. and I wonder to what extent, especially early in life, particularly with the amount of deficiencies that our mothers impart to us, and heavy metal toxicity that causes uptake of and antagonism of certain key minerals that this causes. So maybe you're really creative and you have low follow through because you had a good amount of copper, which is also, during I've heard it said that during the last trimester, something like 70 milligrams of copper is deposited in the liver from mom to child, or needs to be. Because it's so important for mitochondrial function, as is magnesium, as is oxygen for function. So yeah, so those are some thoughts. And then on the balance of that, zinc, let's say two people get together, and this is how personality can cause relationship divide or togetherness, right? Get together, chemistry is one way. And then someone starts drastically supplementing zinc and becoming overly analytical, which we've seen a lot during COVID. And guess what? We saw a lot of divorces. It was never higher. So that's part. I mean, there were other factors, sure, but this was also clearly something. And I remember thinking, like, this is going to be bad. Like, this is going to be really bad for a lot of people.
I'm laughing and also probably blushing because I did take a bunch of zinc, and I'm already analytical, and I got super hyper analytical. I mean, my relationship was great. I have an incredibly patient husband. But that is really funny. I think I think you're right. It's probably multifactorial, but that's kind of amazing. Yeah. Oh, I think there's so many aspects to our physiology that influence our personality, right? Beyond, there's endless inputs in that, but this is fascinating. Yeah, thank you. Sure. Well, let's see some questions here. I know I saw one earlier from Belinda. She's asking about, what do you recommend for osteoporosis?
Well, we really want to understand first what the individual levels are, what diet and lifestyle is like, through questions. So that's the first thing. Often there's too much calcium with osteopenia, which my mom had as one of the parts of her demise. And looking back, just that wasn't super clear then. She had heel spurs, bone spurs, things like that. And you see that commonly with porosis and penia. And really with all bone disease, some of the common factors that we see are a skewed ratio of calcium to magnesium, calcium and boron. So low levels of boron, too much calcium, not enough K2. There's some research out there that's new that shows you can take a lot of K2, and that may be really helpful, particularly if you have a genetic disposition in your body. I was talking to my friend Dr. Jeff Gladden about this too, with heart health and any other problem where like she died of an aneurysm, which can be a hardening of the arteries through calcium, which makes sense because she had calcium deposition. The body was trying to dump calcium in the least vital places, like putting it in the heel, for example, putting it around the joint. So you end up more stiff, but hey, at least it's not in your heart or your brain. And then at some point it ends up in your heart and your brain because you're just taking in so much, your body can't balance it. So yeah, that's one way to think of it. Just a balance between those things. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
And one of the things that can balance calcium, in addition to magnesium and boron and potassium, and potassium is a big one, increasing your potassium intake, lowering your calcium intake, lowering your vitamin D intake, possibly, which, or even stopping for a while, it may be very necessary. And because it's driving calcium absorption, and no one's talking about that.
I know.
All through COVID, we also just heard, take this one vitamin and you'll be fine. Just, and the problem is, it also keeps the channel open in the brain with enough vitamin D. You can actually cause cell death in the brain if you're not taking it, if you have low levels of magnesium, which counteract that channel staying open too long.
Right.
So just word to the wise on that. So,
you just helped me promote our level 3 class. So our functional blood chemistry class, we have actually just gone through an update, and we have completely changed how we work with vitamin D. So those of you who are coming into level 3, you will learn all about that. Those of you who have done level 3 in a couple of weeks, don't go yet because the materials are still being updated, but go and refresh yourself and check out our vitamin D for exactly the reasons that you're talking about. Is that, the seeing the excess levels of calcification, it's just seeing this downside. And also, that the form that we're all testing isn't the most accurate form. It's the cheapest way to test, but it isn't actually what's, you can have much higher levels of, and I'm not even going to say if it's the 2-hydrox, I can't remember which one, but anyways, the other one that is more expensive to test, which we teach now in the class, that form is, that's actually sometimes when you see that client where you're supplementing and it's not going up, it could be that their levels are actually quite elevated. They're just not appearing in the way that you're testing, and you could be driving that calcification process. So I'm actually I like that you brought that up.
I really applaud you for that. That's fantastic. I think, just pairing that blood work with hair testing and getting multiple views of it would be what I would say is awesome. It's just so cost effective. Like, why not? But both, whenever possible, both,
Charis has a question. With the limits on potassium supplementation, how can people get the amount they need?
Yeah, so any product that is produced in an FDA inspected facility has to label their dosage at 99 milligrams or less. Now the body can and does need a lot more than that. So like I said, our RDA is typically pretty conservative. In the case of iodine, our RDA is 150 micrograms. Japan, for example, I'm not saying it's the only reason why they're the healthiest nation in the world, but they have the best longevity and health, and they eat about 100 times that amount every day on average, 80 to 100 times. So they're in the range of about like 12 milligrams or so. We do ship internationally, by the way, and we do see Deanne says, do we ship internationally? Yes. We do have wholesale accounts for practitioners. Yes. And we can order tests internationally. Yeah, absolutely. Where were we though? Potassium. Yes, sometimes you'll notice gut issues if you're going over like a gram a day. But that's usually if someone already has pretty bad gut issues. Again, you need the potassium though. So you can dose it throughout the day, which is usually what we tell people in consultations. Do this like 3 times a day. Maybe it's 2 tablespoons, but why does it show 99 milligrams and 2 or 3% of your daily value? That's why, because the FDA is ridiculous.
Right.
So in my opinion.
Quick follow-up question, and then let's move into how people can get access, how they can open up those accounts, any specials for this crowd. So Kim asks, what about someone on Coumadin taking K2? Talking about those elevated doses of K2.
What about K2? I'm sorry.
She's asking about if somebody's on Coumadin, so they're having to really be careful about their K2 levels because of the blood thinning. That's K.
That's a great question. I would need to know, I think, a lot more info. I think anyone working with that person would need to know, full picture of that.
Yeah.
Great. I don't know. I think more information is required to answer that.
And somebody is on a medication like that, that is where you're going to want to be testing. And we always want to, when we're working with supplements that can have any kind of interaction with a medication, you want to go really slowly, and you want to have their doctor be supervising the medical aspect of things and adjusting doses as needed. So that would be something that you would want to collaborate in that kind of a situation and not do solo.
Yeah, doctor or pharmacist, someone with some good pharmacology background. Yeah, for sure. I agree.
Courtney's asking, she doesn't see a list of the minerals in your trace minerals. Is that listed somewhere? And the description mentions magnesium. She's wondering if you'd still recommend taking your magnesium product separately plus the trace minerals together.
Oh yeah, so trace minerals mean trace amounts of all these minerals. It's hard to say. There's 72 that are naturally occurring, and yeah, so that it kind of varies batch to batch to batch. We source everything throughout different parts of the US. So nothing comes from China, for example. We also third-party test every single batch of every product we produce for potency and purity, which few brands do. They may third-party test, but that doesn't mean every batch. I design these products for myself, so I do. Right. And we always will. But yeah, they're virtually all the most important things that you need. Yeah. And so think really small amounts, and you're sort of broad spectrum filling the gaps. It absolutely is going to be just micrograms of each one of those things. And one will have 11 micrograms of, say, vanadium, and 0.1 micrograms of lithium, and then a really, really small amount of iodine as well. And then but for example, that would be like someone asking, well, taking trace minerals, is that going to affect thyroid and Hashimoto's argument with, like we just talked about? It's like it's just really small amounts. So if you're doing like RO water and putting our trace minerals in it, that's a great idea. I do that daily, all the time. So sort of a broad spectrum, because we used to get that from spring water,
right?
And now we don't really. Right?
Absolutely. Okay, let's talk about how everyone gets accounts with you. Are you? I know when you and I spoke, it was a few months back, and I'm hoping maybe this has changed. Are you on Fullscript yet?
We're working towards that. We're on gethealthy.store right now.
Okay.
And I believe practitioners can get a free account. They can certainly email us. I think we can help them get a free account on Get Healthy. On gethealthy.store. And then
we have a lot of Fullscript users here. Like you're talking to a whole crew of Fullscript. So if you need us to be reaching out to Fullscript saying, please bring in upgraded formulas, we will all do that. We can start campaigning for you, because a lot of us use that as our main online dispensary for our practice. But talk to us about, in the interim, we can open up, if there's a Get Healthy option, there's opening. So tell us the different ways that we can get your products to us and your clients, our clients. And our clients.
Absolutely. Sure. Thank you. And well, on the note of Fullscript, if I can just say one word about that, in a moment, I'll pull up the exact person that I was just put in touch with.
Campaign.
And I think it's Alex Keller, but let me just check. And we can all email Alex and say, hey,
please get upgraded formulas.
I just got introduced to him like last week. So
okay.
Yeah, it is Alex. So if you want this available there, I'm going to drop his email in the chat.
I love it. We can have a great campaign going on here for you.
Yeah. It's like, your congressman. Thanks, Courtney. I know she said you're taking the magnesium. Thank you for that as well. Hopefully you heard the part about shooting it like a shot. I did that for years, and then I started, flavoring it, but and then, yes, thank you, Margaret. It's a really great question. Appreciate you asking that. And we have a couple different ways. So I know a bunch of you really would want to do the consultation yourself, and maybe you have the knowledge already of how to do hair testing. Maybe you want to increase that knowledge. We have a course. I know Margaret, we had talked about this. I can't remember where we got to, but I said we would offer a greatly discounted price to the all of everyone in your group, and we can absolutely do that. I don't know if we ever got that code set up, so that's one way if you want to take the course, but you absolutely don't have to do that. You can be ordering the course. You can have us do the course and get a commission off every aspect of that, and that would be using a code. So if you go to, let me see, is it okay if I share my screen? Or
yeah, totally.
Sure.
Oh wait, hang on, I hit the wrong button.
Just kind of demo this for people. That might be easiest.
Yeah, there you go.
Just thinking on the fly. Okay, awesome. So if we go, if we're on upgradedformulas.com, then we scroll down, and at the very bottom left on the homepage, we see these two options, affiliate and wholesale. So if you want wholesale, you can click here. That's a 40% discount of both testing and products. And then the affiliate program is really simple. Gosh, we've got to change this. I still have my picture on this. My team had put that on there like years ago. And this is really simple. So this tracks the code usage that gets created. So all we need is your name, an email, a password, a coupon code, for example, your name or practice, and then PayPal email.
Perfect.
And that PayPal email allows you to get paid on the first of each month, first or second of each month, for the previous 30 days. So yeah, hopefully that is helpful. I'll stop sharing screen now. So yeah, that's yeah. I think those are the ways, really, right? So basically, you can do it yourself. You can have your clients or patients, whatever you want to call them, in your practice, order it themselves. You can order it for them if you do like concierge and you have their cards on file. However you want to do it, but they can use your code. You get credit. They get a discount, so they're sure to use your code. If that makes sense. Everything on the site defaults to subscription. You can change it to one-time purchase, obviously, just with a click of a button. Yeah.
Awesome.
So thank you.
And so I think you had a special offer for our people here to try the products.
Yeah. Do we know what that code is? I don't remember.
Do you know what? And I thought I'd written it down on the thing. I haven't. Here's what I'm going to do, just so that people don't spend time watching us try to find the emails and things. So here's what we'll do. I will list all the details for that special offer when we send out the replay. I'll send all of those details for you. You all are here watching this. We now have moved off that old site where we had all of the replays. It's now going to come to you through an email. So watch for that email, save that email. You'll have the link to the replay there. If you want to listen to any aspects of this again, and I'll make sure we have all codes and all the details for what you can get included in that email. Barton, thank you so much. This has been fantastic. Such a fun conversation. Great story. Lots of learnings here. I hope, for those of you who haven't tried the products, you got to try the products. You're gonna, and if you wear an Oura ring, like track it now while you're waiting for the product, and then like see what happens.
Yeah. One note on that. And thank you so much for having me on, but this sleep study that we're doing a couple of them, one with BrainTap, one with Dr. Sachin Patel, because he had COVID and his deep sleep dropped tremendously after. And I didn't know this, but someone on my team had sent him some upgraded magnesium because we had gotten connected, and he started taking it, and in 3 days, we have a testimonial that I could show and play, but he told me and his whole group, he had something like 212 doctors in his group, and he said that his deep sleep had dropped quite a bit. He tried everything to get it up, and it wasn't, and he wasn't sleeping well. He's always super grounded. Anyone that knows Sachin, he's just an awesome human, and he and his wife both are just like so lovely. And he couldn't get his deep sleep back up, and within 3 nights, it was back to normal after taking upgraded magnesium. And then I don't remember if he was taking capsules or liquid. Either one works. But and then by the end of the week, it was higher than it had ever been. And then it stayed that way, increased a bit more. And then he went off of it, it dropped, he went back on it. And yeah, he stayed on it. So he's like, hey, would you be interested in doing a sleep study? And I was like, oh, are you kidding me? Like, yes, I've been wanting to do one for years. So we started off with that, tracking in Heads Up Health with Oura Ring. You see REM sleep improve. You see total time in bed reduce.
Yes.
As well, like tremendously. My friend Natalie Jill, for example, she had like 4.5 hours of REM sleep, and she had 15 minutes, actually 14 minutes of deep sleep per night. And she's like, this is my average. So that was Monday. By Friday night, her deep sleep had, so her time in bed was over 10 hours, 10.5 hours, roughly 10 hours and 40 minutes. And then it went to 7 hours and 46 minutes by Friday or Saturday morning. And it went to an hour and 51 minutes of deep sleep and something like an hour and a half or hour and 45 of REM. So like a perfect sort of balance. And she immediately went on this creativity challenge where she started doing one thing a day for 30 days that she had never done before. And she's married with kids, has done a lot, has been super successful in work in every area of life. And there's just some things that she hadn't done. She had the energy and the creativity to do that. And the clarity.
Great story.
Yeah, and she's become a great friend. So
that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much. I know we've got a whole bunch of people who are going to go out and open up accounts and try your product now, and start using it with their clients. And it is how we have incorporated into our healing solutions in our classes. So that's fantastic. Thank you so much for everything you do, Barton. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you, Margaret. This was such a pleasure. I really appreciate it. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for your time. Yeah, let's change the world.
Let's do it. Take care.
Take care.
Bye-bye.